Okay, so this will be a tutorial on how to solve the Rubik's 360. This will not be a direct tutorial. A direct tutorial would be hard to make for this type of puzzle. So this video will mainly be giving you tips and tricks, pretty good ones, on how to solve it. So the second layer rotates on the axis that comes from this black knob all the way down through the middle to this black knob down here. So it only rotates from here clockwise or counterclockwise. It does not rotate any other way. Now that same concept can be applied to the core or the innermost layer or chamber. This innermost core rotates on an axis that is based off the second layer. So here's the top, and here's the bottom, or the other way around, and it rotates freely like this from here. And so if you're facing this on the top, this core will rotate clockwise or counterclockwise as long as it's based off this axis. So this is pretty strong plastic here, so I doubt it's going to break off and then it'll be a broken puzzle from there. And so the object of the puzzle is to get the beads out of the core into the second layer, and then eventually into the correct colored shells on the outside of the puzzle. So the only way to get the balls out and into the shells is to start off by getting them out of the first layer or the core. So here is the hole for the core, and we got to get these balls out through this hole. That's the only possible hole for them to get out. And this puzzle is weighted, so no matter how you have it, the hole will always be on top of the balls or above the balls. But I found a trick that will kind of give the core a lock, a very sensitive lock. So what I do is I find the second layer weight. There's only one, and I'll be rotating along this equator line, this outer equator line here. And once I find this weight here, I line up the core hole with this weight. And so here I got it lined up. There's the hole outline and there's the weight. And that kind of gives it a very, very sensitive locking mechanism, which allows you to guide the balls very gently through the core hole and out to the second layer. There is no top or bottom to this puzzle. It can be held either way as long as the equator line is running left to right. You could hold it like this, but that seems a little bit confusing, because when you rotate the puzzle like this to try to get the balls out, the hole will always be on top from the way the axis is set in this second layer. You should probably hold the puzzle by the colored knobs, and that'll give you a lot more of a chance of getting the balls out. So I want this green ball here to come to this green shell. So I gotta get it out of the hole, and then I gotta get it in here. But there's a little tricky part to that in the second layer. The second layer has two holes for the balls to come into the shells. There's a hole above the equator line, and there's a hole below the equator line. The only way I can get this green ball into this green shell is if I get the ball out this hole. If I take this green ball and get it down into this section underneath the equator line, there will be no way that I can bring it up here. It's kind of hard to explain, but when I get this green ball out, I want it to kick out right next to this hole. So here is the core hole, and here's the second layer hole. So when I get the ball out, I want it to be right next to this hole, so I can easily guide into here. The same applies for below the equator line. If I want this orange ball down here to get into this orange shell, I must have it come out of the core and appear right next to the lower hole. no matter how you move the puzzle, with the equator line going from left to right, there will always be a hole on top and a hole on bottom. That's referring to the equator line. So to get this orange ball into this orange shell, I must get it out of the core and at the same time guiding it directly to the hole that will be rotating below the equator line. I hope that makes sense. And those are all the tips and tricks I have. The main one is the locking mechanism with the weight here and the core hole there. And another really big tip is patience. You will not be able to solve this puzzle really quickly the first time you get it. It'll maybe take an hour to 3 hours of straight concentration to solve it. And I hope this video helps you guys, and good luck.